You know, ever since that moment where Din Djarin defeats Moff Gideon and wins the Darksaber, I was worried that a moment would come when these two individuals right here who come from completely different worlds and backgrounds, helmet preferences, would have to get into a life or death struggle for the Darksaber. Now, I almost did a video talking about the possibility of a fight between these two individuals, but luckily I waited for one episode, and well, I'm happy how things turned out. Spoiler alert. So if you guys follow my Generation Tech Shorts channel, about 3 weeks ago, we did a video titled, "Did she just accidentally win the Darksaber?" I got a lot of hate for this theory. I don't know if some people just don't like Bo-Katan and don't want her to be the Mandalore or find the whole Darksaber thing a bit absurd. But now that crab monster scene, which originally felt like a random detour that messed up the pacing and required us to backtrack back to Bo-Katan's castle, turned out to be one of the most important parts of the entire episode. I guess if you throw out enough crazy theories, like that time I said Palpatine was going to return in episode 9 because they killed the main bad guy in 8, you'll eventually get one right if you try enough. It's not about skill or knowledge, it's more about quantity. But before we continue, a quick word from our sponsor for today's video, Ownersaber.com. They are the premier vendor of lightsabers on this side of the Great Galactic Barrier, and they make awesome replicas like this. It's called the Black Moon Saber, which is a replica of the famed Darksaber. They also make more traditional blades like this. This is the First Dawn, which is modeled after Obi-Wan Kenobi's first lightsaber. Ownersaber.com has basically every lightsaber you could possibly want, including some pretty unorthodox looking hilts. You have the Huntsman, for instance, which is modeled after the Inquisitor's spinning blade, and the Samurai, which is modeled after Ahsoka Tano's dual lightsabers, which she got post-Order 66. And for April, Ownersaber.com has an amazing deal. If you buy 2 sabers from the same collection, you'll get 50% off on your second blade. All you guys have to do is select 2 lightsabers from the same collection, either Padawan Master or Replica, and the savings will be applied automatically at checkout. Thank you for your patience. On to the rest of the video. So anyway, Mando gets disarmed by Crab Monster, so Sword ownership goes to Crab Monster, and then Crab Monster is defeated by Bo-Katan, and so Sword goes to Bo-Katan. She actually saves Din Djarin twice in this episode, a second time later on when Din Djarin finds out the hard way that swimming in a suit of plate armor is not the way. Now finally, in the most recent episode, this theory was confirmed. Bo-Katan returns to her Mandalorian soldiers and defeats Axe Wolf in hand-to-hand combat in order to win back their allegiance. Even though Wolf has lost, he points out that Bo-Katan still doesn't have the Darksaber. It's at this point that Din Djarin comes to the forefront and says the following.
This belongs to you.
It's not a gift to be given, no matter how well intended.
It's not a gift.
Just for a second, I thought Din Djarin was actually going to do what we all thought was going to happen. He was going to fight Bo-Katan because he realized there's really no other way to give her the lightsaber, and he really wants to get rid of that Darksaber. I don't think it's really his thing. But no, instead he tells everyone about that very embarrassing time when a crabman ambushed him and trapped him and started drinking his fluids. It takes a big man to admit something like that in front of a bunch of heavily armored badasses. At the same time, let's also not forget that Bo-Katan has refused on multiple occasions to steal or kill or even challenge Mando Bro for the blade.
In order for her to wield the Darksaber again, she would need to defeat you in combat.
He's right.
Come on, just take it.
She's always been reluctant to claim the Darksaber in the wrong way or from someone she respects.
Your commitment to Mandalore's freedom is legendary, my lady. This belongs to you.
I had my chance to rule and I failed. I am not my sister.
No, Bo-Katan is not her sister. Djarin Kryze knew from day one who she was and what she stood for. She led the new Mandalorians in a civil war against the Death Watch when she was hardly even a teenager. And after emerging victorious, she never really looked back. And although there were many admirable qualities about Satine, she had this one major flaw, and that was her arrogance. She trusted her own judgment too much. This led to her self-righteous commitment to neutrality and peace. She trusted her Prime Minister Almec, who was a devious opportunist. She trusted her Governor of Concordia, Pre Vizsla, who ends up being the leader of the Death Watch. It's almost like she forgot that after the Mandalorian Civil War was over, she sent all of Death Watch to Concordia, and House Vizsla and Clan Vizsla are very closely tied to Death Watch. Yes, at one point in time, Satine Kryze was the more impressive sister out of the two, but her own skills and abilities, her early successes probably made her a bit too sure of herself, and that really got to her head. Bo-Katan Kryze, like most successful people out there, has failed most of her life, and she keeps on pushing for some reason. As a young woman, she became a part of a terrorist organization. She also managed to lose Mandalore 3 times, if you really think about it. But unlike her sister Satine, each one of these failures toughened Bo-Katan. It taught her new lessons and helped her avoid those same mistakes from happening again. The Bo-Katan we see in The Mandalorian is far wiser and more intelligent than Satine ever was in her prime. Just like Djarin, Bo-Katan has come to the point where she just wants Mandalore to succeed. It doesn't matter who's in charge of that rebirth. This is why I like these two. They're seeking power not for egotistical reasons, but because they truly want to bring about change and create a better life for their people. I mean, isn't this what all civilians want from their elected officials? Reluctant leaders who take on office with a sense of respect and understanding that this is not something to be enjoyed. Being a leader is really service to the people, and all decisions must be made in that light. There's so much about Bo-Katan that makes her seem perfect for this position. She's commanded large military forces on the battlefield in the past, has a good understanding of the wider Mandalorian diaspora. The only real problem with her is this.
Count Dooku was a visionary. He was cut short in his prime by the Jedi forces.
Politics.
Yes, we all have weaknesses, and well, for a straight shooter like Bo-Katan, small talk in politics is like the worst thing you can expose them to. And I get the sentiment. I mean, how often do I hear people complaining that if only politicians focus less on politics, then maybe more things would get done? But this is actually a really simplistic view of how governance is done. Politics is actually a very necessary evil. Without politics, there would be no real way to organize people together to make decisions. And a government that makes no decisions causes as much destruction as a government that makes the wrong decisions. Bo-Katan is definitely a bit jaded. She's tired of all the procedure and traditions that comes with being a Mandalorian sovereign.
Do you still have the saber?
I do.
Then you lead them. Wave that thing around, and they'll do whatever you say.
She's also tired of all that senseless killing in the name of tradition and honor.
You will never be the true leader of our people. You won't even take the Darksaber from him. He's the one you should be challenging.
Enough Mandalorian blood has been spilled by your own hands.
Which is why her campaign motto is the following.
Mandalorians are stronger together.
But she's almost become too infatuated with her end goal to see the people standing right in front of her who she needs to convince to join her cause. Which is where Djarin steps up and delivers Bo-Katan a solid by explaining how the Darksaber was actually hers. You know, every great man or great woman really does need a counterbalance, an individual who can provide a different point of view and challenge your beliefs in a very constructive way. It's all about killing your ego and letting someone else's strengths make up for your weaknesses. A great example of this type of relationship is Warren Buffett. He's a hyper-rational individual who more or less popularized the idea of value investing. His lifelong friend and partner, Charlie Munger, is an emotional and optimistic individual who tends to be more speculative when he's choosing his investment options. He balances Buffett out very well, and together they're basically unstoppable. Then you have pairings like Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a left-leaning civil rights champion who had a very close and healthy friendship with Justice Anthony Scalia, who was one of the most respected conservative thinkers in our country at the time. There's also this lion, whose name is Bone Digger, who has a great friendship with this little walking sausage named Abby. These individuals come from all different walks of life, and they have different views on how the world works and how it should be run, yet they're all willing to come together and have discussions that are focused more on compromise and problem solving rather than which ideology is better than the other. When Buffett and Munger discuss a new investment idea, it's not about ego. It's about which decision leads to Berkshire Hathaway profiting the most. To witness a friendship like the one RBG and Scalia shared makes me long for the days when American politics was less divisive and we focused more on policy than what our identity is. And what Din Djarin and Bo-Katan have together, well, that just might be key to a successful reboot of Mandalore. Din Djarin makes a great pairing with Bo-Katan. Not only is he not concerned about power, he's also very devoted to the Mandalorians, his family, and baby Go-Gurt. Now, this might sound surprising, but I actually think Din Djarin would make an excellent diplomat. Now, I know he's in a cult where he can't take his helmet off, and that might be weird for some people. But despite all this, despite his very isolated life, he's able to connect with almost everyone he runs into. That's not a droid.
Rest assured, they were. Sir? Excuse me, sir?
No, seriously, look at the Ugnaughts and how they get along with Mando Bro here. He knows exactly how to talk to them, he knows how to address them properly, and that's because he's taken the time in the past to get to know their culture.
I am Mandalorian Din Djarin, friend of Ugnaught Kuiil. You will answer our questions and help us with our task. I have spoken.
Bo-Katan is well-meaning, but as royalty, that means she's always been pampered and she's always been on the inside of the organization. She's not really used to being an outsider. She rarely needs to figure out a way to connect with other species in order to survive. Unlike Din Djarin, who travels the galaxy as a mercenary working with whoever he runs into, doesn't really matter if it's an Imperial or a Mithril, or whatever type of advanced killing machine Cara Dune is. Din Djarin doesn't judge you, he just sits there, observes, and listens. Unless you're a Jawa, trying to steal his stuff. And so Bo-Katan's attempt to talk to the Ugnaughts fails miserably because she doesn't really understand their culture. And it's kind of cool that Din Djarin lets Bo-Katan at least try to communicate with him first. He's in no rush, he doesn't need to show off, and he seems to really like deferring to her. I know, some of you low-confidence males out there are gonna call Din Djarin a simp, or you're gonna call me a simp for talking about this, but the reality is this is just a normal, healthy relationship between two adults who are of different genders. If every interaction you have with a woman ends up with you trying to dominate them, this could be why you're struggling to find a relationship in the first place. You know, all these words, a simp, alpha, beta, sigma, they're cringy as hell, guys. I mean, go out there and figure out who you are, create your own identity. Don't listen to internet trolls who are so terrified they remain anonymous when they're posting in public forums. Anyway, Din Djarin is a remarkable person, and I think his comfort around different new species that aren't droids shows us that he's a very courageous person. It's natural to be threatened by things that look different from us. Din Djarin, for one reason or another, is just not like that. Even before he got that Beskar armor, he made courageous choices like saving baby Go-Gurt and risking his entire professional career as a member of the Bounty Hunting Guild to save a random baby. Despite belonging to a very orthodox religion, Din Djarin is surprisingly open-minded. This is a Mandalorian who lost his homeworld to the Empire, yet he's willing to work with Imperial clients and he's wearing Imperial Beskar. I mean, I know that the Empire stole it from the Mandalorians, but those ingots had the Galactic Empire seal on them, and Paz Vizsla was noticeably pissed off about that. But not Din Djarin. He's a pretty logical individual. Now, Bo-Katan will most likely become the Mandalore, and I think the armor will make a good advisor to her. And Paz Vizsla will make a great enforcer or general, but it's really Din Djarin who serves as the perfect complement to Bo-Katan and vice versa.
If you don't start answering questions, I'll yank your memory circuit and dissect it back at the lab.
What are you doing?
You're wasting your time. You can't reason with droids.
Their behavior is programmed. All they do is reason.
It's actually really nice to see Din Djarin be at least a little bit toxic. Never trust someone who's like 100% pure. They're hiding something. Probably eating babies. Now, I think Bo-Katan needs to change how Mandalorian society is run. Maybe she could take a page out of her sister's book and bring back the office of Prime Minister. Bo-Katan would make a terrific Prime Minister. She knows exactly how to run larger organizations. She understands the needs of her Mandalorian people, and she's great at managing large military forces. Whereas Din Djarin would be much better in a figurehead role, like a president or a king. His open-minded view of the galaxy and his kindness will help heal the many wounds found in Mandalorian society. I really like what's going on here. And no, I'm not gonna ship them like I often do because it's kind of funny. But I actually think we can learn a really important lesson from these two individuals. You know, like, go out there into the world, find people who are different from you. Don't just surround yourself with like minded individuals. And that's because, you know, human beings, we're not meant to be stagnant. We can't be successful forever. We can't be comfortable forever. It's constant ups and downs, and you really won't be able to change and become a better version of yourself unless you are challenged by people who think differently from you and have a different piece of the puzzle that is life. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy.